HIVE's plans. Well, HIVE blockchain has a very ambitious program of going from using 2 megawatts of energy to 44. So you're talking about close to a 20-fold increase in its revenue, production of coins. And we're already 1/3 there, way through. And by September, we should be cresting at our maximum production. And then we'll made an announcement last week that we're expanding into a mega project in Norway. We're in safe countries mining virgin, newly minted coins, so we have none of that anti-money laundering risk or KYC risk, because in fact, banks want those coins that have never been touched. Well, I think there's some issues on all these platforms because of the deluge. It took 30 years for Schwab to get 10 million customers and 3 years for Coinbase to get 13 million. They were growing at 100,000 a day. And I think that whole process of getting it, it's what the real issue for the mining business is that exploration is speculative money. It's an adventure money, I like to call it, adventure capital. It's very high risk. The regulatory world have made it next to impossible to a person my age you're a broker and you're going to try to pitch me on buying this great exploration project near Perth. Forget it, because I'm too old, according to the fiduciary rules. And this is took precedent in Canada, the same thing in the UK. So you're seeing that it's easier to go buy a lottery ticket. You can go to the casino, and you can go to the racetrack. But God forsake you go and speculate on a mining project. Well, the millennials aren't going to deal with that. They're not going to wait 3 to 5 days to open a brokerage account. They're going to turn around and open an account in many exchanges all over the world. And in Canada, there's a place called Einstein, was that same sort of issues you can say with Coinbase, but Coinbase is the most regulated. And it's ease. It's really important. The millennials want things that are fast and easy. And when I spoke, I said, like Tinder. Yes, no, they want to date. Yes, no, I want to speculate on this particular coin. It's easier. They can speculate $1,000 very easily on a new coin than it is to buy a junior mining stock. They're not killing it. It's really hurting it. It's getting rid of a lot of riffraff projects that are not really. They need a buoyant mining market to be able to fund high risk. But some good projects will always be funded by smart people, and you're seeing that in both Canada and Australia. But the real speculative money. Last year was estimated $5 billion went into ICOs. Well, definitely that speculative money didn't go into mining exploration, even though the commodities were up. And that was the tipping point for me to observe that transition. Well, I think it's much more selective. I think that the concern is where there's big supply, there's going to be no more further exploration. No one cares. We overbuilt for supply side. And so I think that metals that are needed for the battery industry will continue to be of interest. Cobalt, they need safe jurisdictions. So if Australia or Canada can find a cobalt belt, for sake, well, it will just have buckets of money going to exploring for it, because cobalt right now has to come from the Congo, which is just a very high risk for many reasons country to invest in. Well, I think there's very much interest in gold. Ross Beatty is here, speaking at the conference, and he's one of those quietest, smartest billionaires in the space. Still takes the bus to work. I love him because of his frugality, and he made big plays early in silver. I would create the biggest silver company. Then he went into copper, and then he went to alternative energy. And now his big play is gold. And so I think that smart people like themselves and other people that I know are very focused on gold. We actually hit peak supply. So therefore, you're looking for a new project that's going to take many years before that supply comes on. But the world continues to have babies. They continue to print lots of money. And the rising GDP per capita of China and India is strongly correlated with love trade for demand for gold. 60% of all gold demand is for love. And when you look at 40% of the population is in Chindia, affectionately known as China, India, you have some great dynamics in place. So I think this demand for gold will remain robust and will grow. And when they finally figure out an ICO coin that can turn around and be backed by a gram of gold that trades 24/7, millennials will start buying that. And that will be like the GLD when they came up with the first gold ETF. It absorbed $50 billion worth of gold. So all of a sudden now, if we can get a crypto coin that's collateralized against gold, I think it's easy for another $50 billion to be taken out of the market, and it takes a long time to just explore and develop it, so I'm bullish on gold. There's two ways of learning knowledge. There's explicit knowledge, I like to, when I'm giving my speeches, and there's that tacit knowledge. The touching people, talking to people, getting a feel for the vibrations and the energy of the people, their confidence. These conferences, that's what they're for. The explicit knowledge, for simplicity, is getting your driver's license. But that doesn't mean you're a good driver. You need tacit knowledge to be a good driver. And if all of a sudden now I send you to the US to drive from Australia, and you have to drive on the opposite side of the road, and you have to learn all the new rules and regulations, you have to regain your explicit and tacit knowledge. So when you come to a venue like this, you capture, there's not so much explicit knowledge, I would say 80% is the tacit knowledge of meeting, conversing, getting the industry gossip and things that are not in the Bloomberg. They're not in the local press paper. So I think that that's the power of it, of human connectivity. It's a very important node for the human element, and that's what the ICO and cryptocurrencies done so well, without me realizing until this past year, that they've created these nodes. Just think of Ethereum has created 10,000 millionaire millennials. And they have 7 people in their foundation, and they have 30,000 people around the world protecting their ecosystem. Well, we don't have 30,000 people protecting our mining ecosystem, but we do have an audience here of 700 people, and that's what's important to be able to connect with and get a flavor. For me, predominantly I see North American and Latin American assets. When I come over here, I get a better flavor for understanding what's happening in Australia and Southeast Asia.